If you enjoy this featured episode of Marvel Plus, please go over and favorite or follow the Marvel Plus podcast to get future episodes. WandaVision, Season 1, Episode 3. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Marvel Plus, the podcast devoted solely to the Disney Plus Marvel series. My name is Brett Scott. I am your host, and this is the show. And this week, we have another special guest host. This time, I've invited my good friend Dave Horrocks on to help me recap, break down, and review Episode 3 of WandaVision. Dave is what I like to call a podcaster's podcaster. Someone who is so good at his craft that he inspires others in the same field to up their game. Dave is the host of several podcasts of his own, namely Comics in Motion, devoted to movies and series based on comic books, and The VHS Strikes Back, where he breaks down classic films from the VHS era. While I have some comic book chops of my own, Dave is a wealth of comic book knowledge. He's definitely one of my go-to friends when I want to dig deeper into the source material. All right, enough of a lead-in. Let's go ahead and bring Dave on. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Horrocks. Dave, welcome back to the show. How have things been going since we last talked?
Brilliant, mate. I have been so busy podcasting, I haven't even noticed the world's been locked down, and it's been probably not quite as hectic. Obviously, you've had a changing of the guard over where you are, but no, it's been great getting into some new projects as well. Bit of, as you know, the old movies on VHS Strikes Back, lots of comic book stuff as well going on, and got a new football or soccer, as you would call it,
Right.
coming up as well. So yeah, it's all good. How about yourself? I do have to say I did love your little story about the what was it, poking the bull or charging at the bull or something, and you get the horn.
Yeah, where I my podcast where I basically made an ass out of myself. Yeah,
That's the one.
yeah,
But it was a good story.
yeah. Things have been going good, man. I had a good, holiday season. I guess what you guys call holiday vacation, right? So
Yeah.
But Christmas, New Year's had a great time. Went pretty smoothly. Obviously there's not as much going on, not big family get-togethers or anything like that, but we had a nice little quiet, small family Christmas. It was nice.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? And it'll just be better next year, won't it? Hopefully this year, definitely next year when everything opens up again. Yeah,
I think so. We're kind of transitioning the kids back to school. It's about halfway there. Like some kids in the area are back in school full time, but our kids are still doing like remote learning, and they'll be transitioning back within the next month or so. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how that goes.
Touch wood. I mean, the kids are off school here, which I think is the right move because the numbers are going up quite a bit here. I think cases are just starting to come down, but deaths are going up daily. We've got a bit of a melting pot. I'm sure it probably is the same in the US, I imagine, but we've got these different variants, and I think that's probably causing a little bit of havoc as well. But
right,
that's why we love this escapism, isn't it?
Yes. Yep. Yes, sir. So today we're digging into WandaVision episode 3, and I invited you on, much like last time, because man, I really appreciate, for one, your ability to podcast. The way you do it so much that it seems very natural for you to send your voice out there to the world, and your comic book knowledge. That's something I really appreciate, especially on a podcast like this.
No, I appreciate the kind words, and honestly, I just love it. It's just a very. I've got a face for radio, as they would say. So, that's that's why I don't YouTube as much. But no, I just love it, and
there you go,
and very much kind of. Love talking about stuff like this. I mean, we've been so starved of content, haven't we? And what's been really interesting with the WandaVision series is kind of it seems to be a little bit polarizing. Even all the people who are fully bought into the MCU, there seems to be people who, are taking it at face value and are like, what the hell is this? I've waited all this time for this. And there's others, like us, because I think you're the same, that we're looking for all these clues. And, it's not like, if you used to watch Lost or something like that, you didn't get all the answers, for a long time. So, I think people sometimes aren't really used to that slower burn.
Yeah, I was wanted to ask you about that overall, what you were thinking of the series, because I've seen the same thing. I've seen people who are diehard Marvel fans not liking the pacing of this series and thinking that, why are they dragging out these episodes into like full sitcom episodes? Why are they, why so much? They just want to get to the point. And I'm over here like, well, this is 9 episodes. They kind of have to take their time a little bit. And I'm enjoying it very much. I like the slow burn. I don't need the spoon feeding, and I don't need action right off the bat.
Yeah, I think for me, episode 3 has moved it forward quite a bit more than the first 2 episodes. And if I was, if I had any kind of influence at Disney, I would have been tempted. Like The Boys on Amazon Prime last year, I'd have been tempted to release the first 3 episodes as opposed to the first 2, because the nods, the little clues in the first 2 episodes were really quite small. And, possibly, things like the Stark toaster, you're just thinking, well, that's just a way to get a reference to, Stark Enterprises in there. But, we think it's probably a little bit more than that. But I think there are going to be a lot of casual fans. And what I tend to say to people, if they say that to me, I'll tend to say, well, you know what, probably just binge it at the end. Because this kind of slow burn, if it's not for you, it's not for you. If you just want to kind of get to the point, let the season run out, try and avoid spoilers, obviously, which is no easy task necessarily, but try and avoid all that, and then just watch it all at the end. Because this, a lot of MCU fans, obviously, they used to just go into the movie and then they get a whole story from start to finish in somewhere between an hour and 3 hours, but it's finished at the end. And then the overall story is moving forward as well. Whereas this one, you get a sitcom episode story, but not an MCU type story. So that's why I think a few people, if that's the way they're feeling, that's the way they're feeling. And I do think they'll enjoy it, but when they can binge it.
Yeah, that might be the move. I might tell the same thing to friends that are having trouble with the slow burn, because we're not used to this with the MCU, this serialized drama, this really drawn out thing. And so, now that you're bringing it up, like, I kind of see their perspective a little more. I'm like, oh yeah, well, we're not used to that at all. This is going to drag out into what is it?
So it's 9.
9
4, episodes.
6, yeah.
So we've got 6 more after this one.
Right. So that's another 3 hours. So you got about 3.5, 4.5, 5 hours of information that they need to draw out. It's like compared to a 2.5 hour film. Like, yeah, that's definitely an adjustment.
Yeah, definitely an adjustment. I think for shows like this one as well, okay, some people might be finding the slow burn a bit painful, but it's great for people like us, isn't it? Because we can get on, we can speculate, we can say, well, this is what we saw and this is what we think, and this is not taken directly from the comics, say. So, no one actually knows the answer. So I just love the speculation to it as well. For me, that is part of the modern day TV experience now, so I'm glad they didn't drop it all at once, like on a Netflix show, say.
Yeah, I like the idea that over the next year or so, we're going to have some sort of Marvel content basically every week. Something is coming out. And yeah, and the way I am, I'm just like, the more the better. So I don't, after a year of not having any MCU content at all, or more than a year, it's nice to have this to look forward to for the next year. Every week, something new is going to be popping into my feed. And I don't know. I just love it. I love it. And if I had it to binge, I'd already be done with it. And, I'd have to wait another 8 or 9 weeks to see any new content. So
yeah, you'd probably be like me as well. You end up with binger's remorse. Like, I blitzed through Cobra Kai in a couple of days, and then I was like, oh, that was so good. But man, I've got nothing to watch now.
Right. Now I've got a year to wait to see any more. All right. Well, let's kind of get into this particular episode. Actually, first, I did want to mention something and see if you noticed this or if it was the same for you over there. I'm not sure how it works, but now the first 2 episodes when they released, they did not have unique episode titles, and I mentioned that in my first podcast, my first episode review. And now it seems they do. They went back and retitled those episodes on the app, and it looks like going forward, each episode has a unique title. Did you notice that?
And I don't really have a good theory as to why that could be. So it was the same over here. They released it at 8:00 in the morning on a Friday. So, I like to try, it was the same with Mandalorian. I like to try and get up, before work and watch it. And it was like, oh, damn it, it's not there. I'm expecting it to be there. But later in the morning, it did kind of drop on there. I thought it was very strange. But I didn't think too much of it. I just thought, oh, well, the whole kind of project is a little bit different from what we're used to with the MCU. And I guess here, we just gone with episode numbers. I mean, with The Mandalorian, they had chapters, but they still had titles.
Right.
And it just seems strange that they've kind of shoved the titles on after. And what I kind of like about them and dislike in equal measure is that they don't really tell you anything about the episode. It's just, they're just meaningless episode titles for me.
Yeah. So have you looked at, have they released all of the episode titles?
I don't think so. I mean, I
okay.
had a look on IMDb the other day. I couldn't see them there. But I mean, they're kind of,
okay.
I've got them here. So the first one they changed to film before a live studio audience. Then we've got Don't Touch That Dial. And then we've got Now in Color. So, I mean, what is good, it doesn't spoil anything. I guess you could say, well, maybe the Now in Color one, it's going to be in color, but we knew that from the trailers anyway. So I think it's, I think, I don't know. It doesn't really add anything for me. Does it for you?
Right. No, I just wondered. I'm thinking, is the reason they didn't release the episode titles for upcoming episodes is possibly that they will start to give away clues. But I feel like Marvel would be. I feel like they would be smart enough for one to release vague titles, but ones that would get you thinking, right? So I don't know. It seems like if it wasn't going to completely give it away, it would almost be an enticing factor or something fun for fans if they did release all of the episode titles, like right now. I just noticed today, actually, that they had titled them. I don't know when they did it, but last week I was talking on one of the review episodes that I did about, man, I expected, unique titles for these
Yeah.
shows, but I guess not. It's nothing serious. I just thought it odd that they started off not titling them and then
I think
releasing
you're
the
onto
titles.
something.
I
I
don't
mean, while we've been talking there, I've just gone on to IMDb. The titles aren't there. They do have some stills for each episode, which possibly give away a little bit. But I think they're probably just playing it safe, because so much of the lore of this kind of series is the mystery and the intrigue, and being able to pick up on these little things that are going on and kind of speculate about what might be actually happening. And you're right, maybe some of the later episodes kind of give it away a little bit, and so they're just like, to play it safe, let's just we won't have any titles, and then somewhere down the chain, what they probably meant was no titles for the future episodes, and somehow the person uploading the data worldwide for the episodes has not put any titles on anything. So it'd be interesting if someone comes out and says that. But yeah, I think you're right. They just don't want to give anything away for future episodes.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, let's dig into the episode, man. Starting off, you get this opening, a different opening for each episode, and this one is very much reminiscent of Partridge Family, Brady Bunch. Very much looks like those series from the 70s. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool. I think my favorite one was the Bewitched one that they did for episode 2. That was a good one. But in this episode, we've got it's right off the bat, Wanda's pregnancy. This whole episode is about Wanda's pregnancy, and it's progressing rapidly, right? And by about halfway through the episode, she's fully in labor, and the flow of the episode kind of reflects that, right? Or at least it reflects that TV/movie version of labor. Like we as parents kind of know that labor doesn't really happen like that, like the crazy, like chaotic with the Lamaze and everyone running around and panicking. It doesn't. It's a little more drawn out than that most of the time in real life. But I get it, and I get why they do it in movies. They kind of push things forward by, rapidly speeding up the labor process. But in this episode, the episode and kind of Wanda's, I guess, illusion that she's created here is reflecting the chaos of, having a child. So what did you think to kind of the beginning to the middle of this episode?
Actually, I've got a question before I go into that. Are we spoiling? Are we speculating? I mean, we're spoiling what happens in the episode, but there's a lot of little nods and things that could mean something for later. Are we just going for it?
Oh yeah, going for it. Full on speculation, predictions, anything, stuff that might tie into comic book references. Let us have it, because that's one of the main reasons I brought you on the show, is because I would like some of that insight as to what they might be pulling from the comic book world in these episodes.
So it could be a long episode then. So just tell me to shut up if I go on too much. So I guess the first thing, the title credits, like you say, absolutely brilliant. I think the each episode having its own theme has been on point. I've done a wonderful job there. What I found interesting was the use of the hexagons in the opening credits. Now, in episode 2, we saw this guy in a beekeeper suit, and he had all bees around him, and he had a sword symbol on his back. So you're thinking, well, this is swords, so we know they're kind of like S.H.I.E.L.D., but they tend to operate in space. But when I saw the beekeeper suit, my first thought was, well, that's AIM. So Advanced Idea Mechanics, they're kind of an offshoot from Hydra back in the day, very much like you see them a lot in the Captain America comics. But I thought that, well,
yeah,
we saw them in Iron Man 3, obviously Aldridge Killian, that was his kind of company, wasn't it? We had the old Extremis tie-in. So I thought, oh, it's probably not AIM. However, I'm now questioning that again because these hexagons just keep showing up. And the fact that that is the symbol for AIM just makes me think they've got a part to play in this as well. I don't know what part there is, because we seem to be seeing sword a lot more prominent, don't we? But I would keep that in the back of your mind, that AIM may actually be in this. So, you know, a little tie back to Iron Man 3 there.
Yeah, also, you mentioned that AIM is tied to Hydra, and there have been quite a few Hydra references in this series throughout. They keep showing commercials or advertisements, and a lot of time they will tie in Hydra somehow.
So we actually watched Captain America Winter Soldier last week. What a great movie that is. And you know, you kind of forget which end credits are where, or I do at least. And one of those end credits was where Baron von Strucker, you know, introduces the twins, you know, and they've been using Loki's staff, the Tesseract, to actually give them their powers. So you just see that little nugget at the end, and then that's kind of going into Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if these Hydra callbacks are just kind of a callback to her past, you know, and where she's kind of come from. And when I saw in episode 1, we saw the Stark toaster, and I went back and read the Tom King run on Vision, sort of 2015, 2016 time. Can highly recommend that. It's a different story to this, but you know, Vision himself is referred to as a toaster, you know, kind of a derogatory term in that. So I thought it was just that kind of throwaway thing. But what other people have told me is that, well, actually, it's more like the introduction in the movies of Pietro and Wanda, that they said they had, you know, this bomb had dropped on their apartment building, and they were there for 2 days waiting for Tony Stark to kill them. So I wasn't sure if that toaster was more of a reference to the bomb, you know, that gave them so much motivation to go against the Avengers initially.
Yeah, definitely could be. Definitely. It seems like a lot of this world that Wanda, and I'm speculating a little bit, I guess, to say that Wanda created all of this, but I mean, I think for the most part, most people, that's what we're thinking, right? Like, this is her creation, and I think that she's doing that a lot, where she's bringing a lot of things from her subconscious, at least, or from her past, are working their way into it, and maybe even kind of inadvertently. I don't know if I doubt she would be trying to bring up bad memories. But it seems like every once in a while, the illusion goes a little off track, and she has to kind of rewind or do another take, right? And that just seems to be maybe her own negative thoughts kind of influencing the illusion. And she's like, "Oh, no! I don't want that. I don't want that."
So when it started off the season, I think people were thinking, "Well, is this just all in her head?" But I think you're right. I think now we've seen enough to realize, no, this is like a little pocket reality that she's created. And you mentioned about the comics. I mean, one of my favorite runs is House of M. I don't know if you've read that one at all, but okay. Yeah. So basically, you know, it's been a few years since I've read it now, but she does actually change reality in the whole Marvel 616, you know, the whole run of comics. You know, Spider-Man's off, you know, at one point he's a mutant. She creates the world so everyone is a mutant, so that means no one's special. Then, you know, the infamous line right at the end is she says, "No more mutants," and that's when you end up with less than 200 mutants in the whole of the Marvel universe, despite that explosion of mutants in the 90s. So we know that she can create these different realities. And I think you're right. What I'm not sure about kind of when we get to the end and we realize, well, even in episode 1, we could see, someone from S.W.O.R.D. was watching a TV with this WandaVision on. Is the kind of barrier around it, is that created by her? Or it looked to me a little bit like Spider-Man Far From Home when you had the Mysterio, creating all those illusions. He had all those cameras and everything. I don't know if you saw that. So I'm not sure if S.W.O.R.D. are there. And again, maybe a little callback to Thor. Do you remember Thor where Mjolnir was in the middle of the desert and then they created this whole kind of camp around it? I wonder if it's something similar to that. But it does look like, what's the place? Something Westview. It does look like it's a real place. And I'm thinking that these are actually real people, not just something that's been dreamt up by Wanda.
Yeah, it seems like people were wondering that at first, but episode 3 seems to confirm at least part of that, right? That these people, other than Wanda and Vision and possibly the neighbor Agnes, right? All seem to be there, under duress. They don't want to be there. They're being held there, or they're being made to be part of this illusion that either Wanda is creating or someone else is influencing as well.
Yeah.
But they don't want to be there. They desperately seem to want to not be there. And by the end of this episode, we see that, yeah, for sure, there is a real barrier around some sort of real place. Like there's a real town. And Wanda kind of excommunicates the Geraldine Monica character.
So we know, and again, this is not something we've seen in the story, but obviously we do know because of the actress that this is Monica Rambeau, don't we? And I'm guessing that she's somehow in this process going to get some powers, because she was in the 80s, if you go back to the old, the original Secret Wars story, which is an absolute brilliant run, she's in there as Captain Marvel, and she was also known as Photon. So I'm guessing they'll probably adopt that name in the MCU, but she's definitely working for S.W.O.R.D. We could see that on a necklace. So she's kind of an agent of S.W.O.R.D. by the looks of it. Mm-hmm. But what did you think of like Herb? Because Herb really wanted to tell Vision something. And he was saying, because we're all, and then he sort of stops, and I think that's what I was thinking is that because Wanda's concentration was breaking, because in parallel to that, she was talking to Geraldine, and Geraldine was saying about Pietro and how he was killed by Ultron. And that's where, I don't know about you, but I start to get those geek flutters. It's like, oh, God, now it's really coming to fruition. It's paying off for dedicating our lives for, all this time, for nearly a decade and a half watching all these MCU movies. It still ties in very nicely. But because Wanda's concentration was on Geraldine, and she's I thought it got a little bit sinister there. Then Herb starts to want to tell Vision something, and it's Agnes who's saying, don't say anything. What did you make to that?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not sure yet. Now, I had a good friend of mine, Justin, on the last podcast, and he's for this entire time, he has believed, even before the series started, that this is a real town with real people in it being held prisoner. And it seems like that's at least partially true, like partially confirmed, right? But I'm not sure with the way that Herb was, he didn't finish the sentence, right? He could have been going to say, we're all prisoners, right? Or he could have been he could have been saying like, we're not real. who knows what, I mean, he could have been saying like, we're an illusion, we're not real people, including Vision. And he's trying to tell him that, you know. And then now the Agnes character, I don't know. Like I said, there is speculation about her as well going around too. And if you know about that,
so
I'd love to hear about that.
Harkness, who I think a lot of people are speculating that this is her. And if you look at some of the like jewelry, some of the brooches that she wears, they're a bit witchy, you know. So she actually appeared in Fantastic Four comics initially, but she's been very much tied up with Wanda's story as well, sort of taught Wanda some magic. In the comics, she looks a bit more like Aunt May. You know, if you see the old classic Aunt May drawings, she's a proper old lady like that. So she doesn't visually represent her, but I think it's too close. And the other bit of speculation is that Mephisto is essentially Satan in the Marvel Universe. And it's a bit of a sitcom trope that someone will talk about their spouse, you know, and you never actually see them. Or not even just in sitcoms. I mean, I said to Chris the other day about you never see Columbo's wife, do you? But he's always referring to her. Agnes is always referring to Frank. And when she was talking to Herb, she said, Frank looks better in the dark. Now, or is it Ralph?
I think it's Ralph, right?
Not Frank. Yeah.
Her husband.
Good
her
catch.
husband's Ralph. It's all right.
Names, honestly. So again, I thought, that does tie up, you know, into it could be Mephisto there, because again, he's a bit mischievous and you know, he could be at play. But then you'd have AIM in there, you'd have Mephisto, you've got a new organization, Sword. So I don't know if they're going to bring all of these things together, but it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, that seems like a lot. It seems like a lot to...
This Agatha Harkness, she is a very, very like powerful witch. I can't remember which issue it was, but they go back into... she was there at the Salem witch trials, but she wasn't just, you know, kind of born or you know, she hadn't lived a human life then. She'd been around for many years before that as well. So, again, I'm thinking all signs point towards that for her. And the fact that we know that Monica Rambeau is in there, but with a different name of Geraldine, I think then it'd be consistent that Agatha would have a different name in the sitcom world as well.
Right. And what did so we saw back to Herb now, right? When Vision goes outside and Herb is cutting right through the property line fence, right? So is that, you think that's just Wanda's concentration slipping so that thing is happening? And if so, wouldn't that point more to him being a manifestation than a real person being held
because
prisoner?
I don't know. that bit was the first bit when I thought, you know what, this episode is going to start paying off. You know, there's going to be some things, because it was a very creepy, vacant expression, wasn't it? It was like a robot kind of malfunctioning, because Vision had kind of said, you know, you're cutting the hedge a bit close there, and he's going right through the concrete, and he sort of acknowledges him, but he's got those dead eyes just staring at nothing. And I was thinking, is this a Westworld kind of thing? Is he a robot?
You know, it kind of reminded me of Mrs. Hart from the first episode, right? Like, when she goes into that glitchy, laughing
when her husband's choking. It's very... Yeah. I do wonder if... I can't think what was going on in parallel to that, because I don't think Wanda was particularly tied up, you know, doing something else at that point, was she? So...
No, she was, but she was put on the spot because they were asking about her past, right? And they were asking about, and so she was kind of caught off guard by something and made uncomfortable by something. So, yeah, and it felt like she lost it a little bit. Yeah. Like it felt like she was breaking character a little bit. And
I
at the
think you're
same
right
time,
then.
that was happening.
So it is, because she's definitely got control of the world. Like you say, in the last episode with the beekeeper, we saw a nice rewind effect, which I thought was pretty cool. With this one, we saw Vision really start to question, something's not right, is it? And then we get a glitch back, and then it replays, but in a different way. So she's definitely in control. And I think it would absolutely marry up that, she has to stay concentrated. She has to stay in character, but she has to keep everyone else in character as well.
Yeah, I'm actually, the more we are talking, I'm becoming more and more convinced that the people in this town, most of them are not real people. I'm starting to think that most of them, at least, are not some kind of people being held prisoner and made to act a certain way, but actually part of the illusion, much like Vision, right? I think that Vision is a manifestation, and I think a lot of the people in the town are a manifestation because of the things that we were just talking about. Like, it seems like they're glitching. These people are like kind of falling apart when Wanda does, and I don't feel like I feel like if Wanda was holding them prisoner, what would happen when she would lose her concentration is they would try to escape or something like that. Not that they would have these weird glitch moments where their character would mess up, or I don't know. I feel like I don't know. It feels more to me like they're part of the illusion, though. With some exceptions, obviously, Monica gets sent in to the illusion, and I think that's why Wanda kind of, at first, Geraldine, Monica, is really playing along. It seems like, right? She's staying so in character because she doesn't want Wanda to realize that she's not part of the illusion. And then quickly, as soon as Wanda realizes, like, you don't belong here. I didn't create you, and I can't control you. So she kicks her right out. But the other people there, I think that's what Herb was trying to say. I really do. At first, I thought he was going to say, like, we're all prisoners, and I think we're supposed to think that, right? It's a little red herring. I think that we're supposed to assume that's the next thing he's about to say, but what he's actually about to say is, like, we're not real. Be.
And I don't think we'll. It's brilliant to speculate. I love it, but we'll probably find out in the next couple of episodes. I would have said a little bit more about that, because what I found interesting about Geraldine, I don't think she was completely aware. It wasn't her going in as a sword agent and then completely being in character with the sitcom. She genuinely, seemed confused. It was like she was gathering her own memories and was confused herself. Like she was disoriented when she was talking about Ultron, and she was kind of recounting memories. And, so Wanda's challenging her, and she's like, well, I don't know who I am. Whereas if she was purely like an undercover agent, I don't think she'd have reacted in that same way.
Yeah, you may be right, because also in the second episode, she's at that town meeting, right? And she seems a little confused there too. Like she's trying to recall her name for a second. So there's definitely some things where she does seem, maybe she was sent in, but they, when they sent her in, they said, just be aware, she's going to take some kind of control over you. And maybe it is like, maybe that's part of the risk of going in, is like, you might end up going mad. You might end up part of this illusion or something. So yeah, interesting, man. Like I think this is my favorite part about this series, is the speculation, and makes me appreciate even more that it's a week to week series, so that we can,
so good.
We can do this for a whole week.
I've watched it like 4 times now, quite honestly, and because it is such a short episode. I mean, they're saying like, they're half-hour episodes. Actually, there's about 10 minutes of end credits, isn't there? So, they're really only 20 minutes. So nice and bite-sized. You can be doing that,
right?
On any device that you so want to. Have it on your phone while you're brushing your teeth or whatever. So try and find some other little clues. I do think,
Right.
like I say, I think we'll start to see a little bit more. I did have a point about the twins as well, because it didn't really resonate with me so much when I saw it. But you know, when they were doing the whole magic show, and they were talking about this whole thing was for the
Yes.
children, and then the whole it's not village, the whole town
Yeah.
sort of repeats in unison for the children. And yeah, very cult-like, and it's almost
Yeah.
like
It's very cult-like.
something is willing them to have these
Hmm.
children. And again, so I'm wondering if this is, this is Ralph
Hmm.
at play here, whether he wants the children or whatever. But in terms of the source material, I mean, so WandaVision did have twins. That was part of her kind of descent into madness around House of M, and she ends up killing off Clint Barton, and I can't remember. I think she might kill off other people as well. Again, the mutants didn't think very fondly of her for a while. Those twins disappeared for years and years, and in recent times they have reappeared as part of the Young Avengers. So I don't know if you're aware, there are a couple of characters, one
Hmm.
called Wiccan, and one is called Speed. Speed, obviously, powers very much like Quicksilver or
Hmm.
Pietro. So I have no idea. It really would be a long game,
Right.
if they introduce those characters. But what I think is more likely is that they might go down the route of saying, well, the twins have disappeared, and possibly sends Wanda off into a bit of a rage,
Yeah.
because there is that grayness. Is she a hero? Well, she has been, but she can be a bit villainous in the comics as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that, as we're kind of wrapping up here, uh, I want to know what now.
Hmm.
Obviously, we have no idea really where it's going, and a lot of times Marvel Studios, when they put this stuff together, they do like to
Yeah.
have us believe that they're going a direction and kind of go a different one. Much like Spider-Man Far From Home.
Hmm.
I thought they were about to introduce the multiverse, right? And as did everyone else. And then, oh, just kidding. Mysterio is not really from, a different Earth. But it's clear that we're getting a multiverse now soon. But I think that Marvel loves to do this, like have us thinking in one direction and then go a different one. And I fully trust them with it, because the direction they decide to go is almost always brilliant. Like I'm always pleasantly surprised. I'm never like, man, why'd they do that? But I'd like to speculate a little bit about where this series is going, at least, and then based on where you think the series is going, do you have an overall look like how this affects the MCU? Because they've talked quite a bit in press releases and stuff about this being connected to other films like Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So what do you think? What do you think's going on here? I mean, just purely prediction, right?
And this is not
we
unique. I've heard a few people say this. I think even you and Justin were discussing it on the last episode, but I think this is going to be the trigger. So we're seeing this little pocket reality, and it's only as big as like a little town. But I think something is going to happen where it's almost the reverse of that whole No More Mutants thing at the end of House of M, where we're going to see, a bunch of new realities, or the whole fabric of time and space being ripped apart. Wanda in the MCU, she got her powers from an Infinity Stone. And with the different powers that she's demonstrated in the movies, she kind of almost demonstrates all the powers of all the different Infinity Stones. So she's almost like this walking, talking Infinity Gauntlet. And I think she is, she's already looking like she's more powerful than what we saw in the movies. And I think she's going to be the one to trigger off, breaking down those walls between the different realities and universes. So, yeah, I think that will be where it'll end up. I can't help but feel this is actually Vision. The fact that he's questioning things. I think if she just completely made him up, he'd be perfect Vision. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't have his own agency or anything. He wouldn't be questioning the reality. So I think it could be him. In the first episode, when they were doing the whole I Love Lucy thing, the 23rd of August was the date on the calendar. Now, that's interesting for two reasons. One, it's Jack Kirby's birthday.
Yeah.
Two, Avengers 238. Mm-hmm. I went back because I've got the Marvel Unlimited app. I hadn't read this one before, but I went back to 238, and Vision is actually incapacitated. I can't remember who had done that, but he'd been basically put out of action completely. And so he was kind of just in the Avengers mansion. You had Star Fox in there, who's Thanos' brother. He's moaning because he's having to look after Vision. But in the process of that issue, Vision essentially fixes himself. So the date on the calendar, that could be wild speculation, but I can't help but feel we are going to get Vision properly back, not just a figment of her imagination. And the events that happen at the end of this series, like I say, are going to lead on to bringing back the likes of Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man in Spider-Man 3.
Right. Okay, so big question. Is this how we get the X-Men?
I was so happy when Disney finally acquired Fox. And I was even thinking, could it happen in Endgame? You would just only have to have a tiny little scene. Just show us the damn adamantium claws. That's it for a second on the screen, and that's it. That's all I need to see to basically lose my shit. Right. I can't help but feel it's a bit early for that. I don't know. And I haven't mentioned it. I don't know if you noticed in the adverts on WandaVision, when you have the Hydra soak, you had the toaster, what was the Strucker watch? It's always the same two actors who are of an age that could be like Wanda's mum and dad. Again, could be nothing, but it could be something. But then you're saying, well, if it's Wanda's mum and dad, well, that kind of counts out Magneto, really, doesn't it? I would love for this to open the door to the X-Men, but the length of time I think it takes to knit together these particular stories, I just don't know. It still feels like it's going to be too early. As much as I'd love it.
Yeah, honestly, I'm thinking more. I'm thinking we're looking at like 4 years out, maybe from a proper X-Men film. But I guess what I was asking really is just like, do you feel like this is the catalyst? Like, do you feel like the reason we end up with the X-Men is because of these different realities? Because that's always been my speculation. Like, even before we knew that there was a multiverse, I'd always predicted that the only way they could now explain, the fact that the X-Men had never been around before and now suddenly are, would be to merge maybe another reality.
It seems
where
like
they did
such
exist.
An easy thing for them to do. It's almost, I'm going against the grain a little bit by saying, well, why wouldn't they do it? Because if you're playing about with the realities, you've got the perfect excuse.
Right.
The thing is, they're bringing in the Fantastic Four, aren't they? They're going to reboot those, and I think to knit together all of these different franchises, I think is a really big task. You are, even I'm sort of half worried, thinking, well, is it going to oversaturate things if you have all of the characters? The Avengers today, you've had a manageable number of characters, haven't you? And it's not like, we'd say Justice League, where you say, well, if Batman's having a bit of a trouble, get on the blower, get it onto Superman. Can you come down and sort this out? He's kind of run into those problems. So I think it would be brilliant, and I would love it. And I'm almost protecting myself that it doesn't happen because, like I say, I was kind of half expecting it in Endgame, even though I knew it was a bit too soon. So I hope so. But I don't think they will. I think they're going to wait a bit longer.
Did you notice or hear that Evan Peters, the Fox's version of Quicksilver, the actor who plays him, is in the credits for this series? Now we don't know who he's playing. But people are speculating, obviously, like, well, he was Quicksilver. Like, why else would they bring him into this series? Are they going to show a different version, a different reality version of Quicksilver? I don't know. I don't personally think so. I think it's just more likely that he's probably just playing a different character completely.
I've not seen that one. That's brilliant.
But that's some speculation
going around. So it could be, couldn't it? I mean, I think it would be particularly strange, maybe if we saw him as a very brief cameo and then he popped up in Spider-Man, say, where we know we're going to get these different, at least Peter Parkers. Again, I mentioned Speed, that one of the young Avengers. It'd be interesting if they brought him in as Speed, wouldn't it? So same powers, but not part of the X-Men universe. Because I think it could potentially get a little bit messy, couldn't it? Because if you bring in Evan Peters as a Quicksilver, well, is Wanda going to recognize him as her brother? Also, where are the other X-Men, as Deadpool might say? So. It could be interesting, and you've kind of got my juices flowing there again, because I just think, you know what, as many reasons I could think why it wouldn't be, an alternate Quicksilver, I'd still love it. I mean, in Days of Future Past, he basically had the best scene, didn't he, with the whole time in a bottle thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I love that version of Quicksilver, and I was sad to see that with Marvel Studios, with Disney acquiring 20th Century Fox, that they didn't plan to continue on with the same actors. Some of those actors were great fits. So it'd be unfortunate that some of them couldn't tag along.
Probably,
and that was one of them. I like that character.
So it's probably a whole different podcast, but I mean, especially with the later X-Men movies came out, I was kind of in my mind thinking back, and I was thinking, you know what, Fox's X-Men was basically all about Hugh Jackman and Wolverine. When he wasn't there, generally they were lesser movies, and especially finishing off with Dark Phoenix. I know New Mutants was there, but that was always kind of a smaller spin-off thing. Dark Phoenix was drawing the line under the X-Men, and I thought it was massive disappointment.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely agree with that. Like that and X-Men Apocalypse, just both of those films really. We are getting way off topic. I think, which I love. That's actually, that's one of the reasons I like having you on, is because we can just go all day. We can talk about the entire Marvel universe for hours, but probably not the best place to do it. So I think we'll carry this conversation on to some other podcast. We're not specifically talking about WandaVision, but Dave, thank you for coming on, man, and giving a lot of the comic background to a lot of these stories. And
no problem, mate. It's always great to speak to you.
Kind of speculation about where it's going. I appreciate it.
And discussing some of this brilliant content that, like I say, every week for the year. Absolutely brilliant. Bring it on.
All right, ladies and gents, that is going to do it for today's episode. I really and hope you enjoyed the conversation between myself and Dave. I know I had a great time, and I can't wait to have Dave back on the podcast. Now, if you have any questions or comments to add to the conversation, please feel free to hit me up on Instagram or Twitter at RealBrettScott, or email the show directly at marvelpluspodcast@gmail.com. Please favorite or follow Marvel Plus on your podcast app of choice to get all future episodes as soon as they drop. And if you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help the podcast grow and reach a larger audience, the best thing that you can do is share the episodes on social media. If you want to drop a 5-star review wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, I'm sure that wouldn't hurt either. Look, I know there are a ton of Marvel podcasts out there, so I really appreciate you giving this one a go. As always, thank you so much. My name is Brett Scott, and this has been Marvel Plus.